been here before. We have these all over the place, and this tells you something about our center. And I feel like I also want to tell you, check out our website and all the wonderful things we have going on here. Wonderful things like Monique, and I'm so glad that you were drawn to her message and her presentation, what she's about. She is just a lovely, lovely person we have discovered in working with her. She has books up here, and she also has a guest book. How sweet is that she'd like everybody to sign the guest book, let you know she's here. I'm going to tell you something about her, but I first wanted to also let you know that this event, this evening, is sponsored by our Sacred Path Books and Gifts. This is what we call an author event. So we're glad that you could be here to be part of our author event. And you are an author. So let me tell you something about her. Monique Rebelle is a contemporary artist. She is the author of this wonderful book that drew you all here, called Transcendence Calling. She is also an inventor, and she's a skier, good living in this area, and you've had a good year, haven't you, for skiing? She lives right here in this area. Tonight she will share her fascinating story of going from being on the verge of suicide to living a new happy life after experiencing the transformational kundalini rising process. She has a new take on chakras, which we're all eager to hear, kundalini energy and spiritual enlightenment. So I ask you to please give a warm welcome to Monique Rebelle.
Thank you so much for having me here. This is a wonderful, wonderful place. I am so honored to be able to share with you a little bit of my story, and hopefully what I will be talking about today will very well add to what is already known about the powers that are invisible, but are very, very important in our life. When the experience that I'm going to talk about happened to me, I had no awareness of anything like it. I was completely unaware of what chakras were. I didn't believe in them. I didn't know the word kundalini, and the whole spiritual enlightenment thing was something that I also didn't quite believe in. So you understand that when it happened to me, and it was such a profound and such a powerful experience, it brought about a very, very unforgettable transformation, not only in my mind, but also in the way that I didn't become someone else, but what I've learned and what the physical aspect of it was also very, very powerful. I will need to say a little bit about my life before the experience happened. It happened in 1992 when I was 35. And when it was about to happen, I was on the verge of suicide. The reason I was feeling that way and I was determined to end my life was because, according to my own opinion, I failed. I failed in my life. I failed completely. I didn't manage to achieve my goals. And those goals were very, very important to me because they included my daughter that I was separated from and I just simply had no means to be with her. She was with my mother, and I had a very bad relationship with my mother. And as you know, you may know, I was born in Poland in the communist times. At the time when I was growing up, there was this dichotomy between what I heard about the government at home and what I was learning in school. In the same way, what I was learning about family relationship was teaching me that mother is the one who knows the best, the one who loves you, and the one you should listen to. And that was also something that was very hard for me to live with, because I always felt that my mother was not my best friend. And she discouraged me from doing things that I wanted to do. I was not allowed to learn to play music. I was not allowed to pursue acting, which is what she was an actress, and both my parents were actors. I was told that I was good for nothing and that I will always fail. So I, from very early on, learned to check myself and look into myself just to find out who I was, especially when I was started to grow up, and when I was about 14, 15. That's when I began to analyze myself and think about what I felt, analyze my emotions and my thoughts, compare myself to my friends in school who always liked me, but I was never good enough for my mother. I was always the one who was just not good enough. I had no brothers or sisters, and my father wasn't around. I saw him for the first time on television when I was 16. And then I tried to meet him and called him out of the blue when I was 16. Found his number through the operator, and he never showed up, although he said he would. So I had no support. I really had no support. I was pretty much on my own. And it's not that I'm considering myself unique in that way, because each of us has a story, and some of these stories are much more difficult in many ways than mine. So the reason I'm talking about it is because I subconsciously was driven towards something that happened years later. And when at the time I was feeling that I failed, it was because I gave myself 13 years since I left Poland to accomplish something as an artist and to be able to support myself and support my daughter. And at the time when I was living in Los Angeles in an attic of an old Victorian house with no water no kitchen, I had a bathroom that I was sharing with people down on the ground floor. At that time, I thought that I completely failed. I failed as a wife, because my relationship with the father of my daughter didn't even get to the point of us getting married. He wasn't into it, and I failed as a daughter, because my mother didn't really want children. So I never managed to please her in any way. And as a mother, I also failed because my mother at some point got my daughter. It's a longer story, and I'm not going to share it right now because we don't have enough time. But all in all, what I wanted to give you a picture of is that I tried for many years to succeed as an artist, and for the 4 years of living in Los Angeles, from 1987 till 1992, I started working on a new abstract series of paintings that happened through because of an epiphany that I had, where I saw something in the painting that I was working on that was absolutely beyond my own understanding and what I thought I already knew about art. So it's like another dimension opened in front of me, and it was so powerful that I started to work on those paintings, and they were very abstract and very difficult actually to understand, and I could never sell them. It was very, very, very hard to sell them. But I kept on working because I believed in it. I believed in myself as an artist, but as everything else, what I thought I should be, I failed. So that day, on March 10th, I woke up and I was certain I was going to commit suicide. And then at the same time, I was feeling that, boy, I should try to save myself from this and try to find ways to stop myself from that very violent urge that I had. Still, by 2:30 p.m., I decided to go to the store and get razor blades. On the way, I went downstairs from my attic, and on the way there was a bathroom there, and I thought, oh, I should take a shower. Shower and water was soothing, and I thought that will help me to maybe stop myself, or maybe delay the process of ending my life. So as I went to the bathroom, there's this old-fashioned huge bathtub with glass walls around it. I tried to stay in the bathtub, but my mind kept on telling me, you have to go, you have to go, you have to get those razor blades, you have to do it. And as I was trying to fight that urge to commit suicide, I realized that there is an emotion that's overwhelming me, and that emotion, I was able to call it depression. I was very depressed, and I'd been depressed for the past 4 or 5 months. I couldn't get out of bed, I didn't want to do anything. So it was a longer time being depressed before I finally thought that I should end my life. And so when I realized that I am in that terrible feeling, that feeling of depression was overwhelming me, I decided to look into it and just see what it was. And I felt it, and it was so painful. It was so extremely painful, but I was able to identify it. And when I identified it, I decided to step out of it. That one moment, when I was able to do that, I found myself in a space that was like a vacuum. There was no emotion there. I couldn't think of anything good. I couldn't think of any good emotion. But I was able to put away to the side that horrible feeling. And that felt like a good thing, even though where I was at that moment was not any good emotion. It was like a desolate landscape, but still it wasn't negative. So it was this neutral space where I was. And it was very significant because I've never really experienced anything like it, except when I was working on my paintings, I was able to put away any sense of depression and get into my artwork, which was not necessarily a great feeling, but I wasn't thinking about it. At that moment, I was able to feel that that emptiness was significant, that in that emptiness, there was nothing else but me breathing. I could focus on breathing, and I could also, with my mind, put away that sense of depression. I could only hold it up for a few seconds. After that, the depression, the feeling of overwhelming, horrible, nightmarish emotion would be back, and I kept on pushing it away. Eventually I was able to push it away for a longer time, but my mind kept on telling me the same thing. You have to, there is no way you can live. I could not figure out what I did wrong. I tried to and tried, and I couldn't figure it out. So I lied in the bathtub with my eyes closed, and I knew that even though I was emotionally kind of even, my emotion was not bothering me anymore. My mind was telling me that there is no way out. That in every way I can think of, I have to commit suicide. There is no way. So I agreed. I surrendered. And I agreed to commit suicide. And that's when I opened my eyes. And when I opened my eyes, I saw something that was really scary. And it was scary because it was real. My mind was very clear at the time when I saw it. And I was very aware of what was going on. And I saw this rainbow light. It was a rope of rainbow light. It was like a rope of rainbow light floating on the background of white tub. And I knew it was real, but I have never heard of anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. And it was terrifying, just because it was real. And how many of you have seen that happen, right? I never heard of it. So I was ready to run away. And as I was jumping out of that tub, I saw that that light was moving with me. So that was even more scary, because there it was, and it seemed like it was coming out of me. And it was beautiful. It was just kept on moving, and it wasn't very, very strong, but it was clear. So I had a choice of running out the bathroom and screaming, there was no one in the house, or staying and conquering my fear. And I conquered my fear. I said, okay, no matter what happens now, I'm going to watch this. I sat down back in the tub, with my legs crossed, and I waited. I didn't know what would happen. I had no clue, because I have never heard about kundalini rising. I have never heard even the word kundalini, right? And so, about some seconds later, maybe a minute later, I suddenly started to have images come to me, pictures. And the pictures were of a little child. And I looked at that child from above, like if the child was just here, and I could see the child maybe 2, 3 years old, figuring things out, making decisions, reacting to situations that I could also comprehend. I could see what they were. And after a while, I realized that these images, they were like tiny short video clips, that these images were of me. I was that child. And then I knew that I can follow the thoughts of that child as it was making its decisions when it was 2, 3 years old. I could follow those thoughts, and I knew now that they were my thoughts. I recognized that. So I was following my thoughts, and these thoughts, they were not disappearing right away. I could follow them from the time when I was little all along, me growing up, and I could bring them up to the present time. And within a few minutes, all of my thoughts that I had came up. It doesn't seem possible, but that's what happened. I could clearly follow all of my thoughts, and I realized that actually the thoughts that we have, they're not, maybe there's thousands of thoughts that we think of during the day, but those main trains of thoughts, they're leading somewhere. We make decisions and we follow up with them. We follow our decisions, and they become more of something we rely on. We build our personality with that. So within a few minutes, all of my thoughts came up like bubbles of oxygen in the water. They came up to the surface, one after another. I was just watching it. I could see it. I understood what it was. Suddenly, I had no more thoughts left. I was still very, very aware of what was going on, and I knew that the thoughts that I've had all my life are gone. They're vanished, but they did not completely vanish. They transcended into energy that I felt all around me. And it was this incredible brightness. It was clarity, and I knew that my mind was clear, that I could understand everything, and I could find the right solution for everything. My mind was working perfectly. The next thing that happened, I realized that all those thoughts, what I had in my mind for as long as I lived, that they were covering me up like a shell of dried mud. and at some point I could feel all of that just falling away. It just fell away, like at first it was like a dried up mud, dark, but then it was still dark color, but it was like a smoke that was blown away. And there I was with no old thoughts, clear. And the first thing that came to my mind was that it's not just me. No, it's not for me only. This is universal. This can, if it happened to me, it can happen to everyone. And that process is something that everyone can experience. So there I was, free from my thoughts, free from the personality that I thought I was, able to figure everything out. But at that point, there was nothing to figure out. And this is where is the point of our meeting today, because the next stage of this experience is taking us into the realm that I also had no idea existed. As I was sitting there, feeling the light and the brightness and feeling that that my mind is working perfectly, I started to feel more light coming down on me. First it was milky, kind of milky bright light, and then it became more of like golden specks showering me. And I felt like I'm being given something, like I'm getting a gift. I didn't know what it was, of course. I've never heard of anything like that. As much as I did hear about meditation allowing us to get rid of our thoughts, I never heard of this, what was happening at that moment when I could feel I'm being supported. And I also felt like I'm lifting up. I was levitating, but I was supported. I was receiving support from somewhere. And it was good. It was very, very good. Within a few more, probably seconds, I started to feel that there is actually someone near. Yes, I was by myself in the bathtub of the bathroom of an empty house, but I felt that there was a presence there. There was a presence that was getting closer and closer to me, and it was very attractive. I felt drawn to it. And I felt that the presence was coming closer to me, and I didn't know. I had no idea what it was, but it was there. Just like the rainbow light, it was as real. It was there. And it was very exciting. I felt that the presence was coming closer and closer, and there it was, and eventually this moment, there was this very particular moment when it touched me inside my heart. It really did touch me. And I fell in love. At that moment, I fell in love, and I felt that the presence also fell in love with me. And that presence not only loved me completely, but also knew everything about me, knew all of my thoughts, knew all of my worries, knew all of my emotions, knew what was going on with me. It always knew it. And it loved me madly, and I was madly in love with it. And so that sense of suddenly finding love that I maybe always dreamt of, and it was never there, or maybe it was there only in part. This was a complete love. And I felt I'm loved completely forever. There was no doubt about it. I found myself home. I'm home. And then I realized the next thing, that spiritual masters were teaching that, had been teaching that for millennia, that Jesus was teaching that always, because he was one who also received that love. Just like other spiritual masters, they received that love, and now they can give it. It's hard to give it when you don't think you have it. But I realized that where I was at that moment, in that incredible space, I could see pink and green floating colors, beautiful. And I felt that I'm full of that love. I started to think about all people who don't know that, don't have that love. They feel unloved. And I started to the love was pouring out of me. It was just happening. It was not something I thought of to do, but it simply was happening. And I knew there is no going back, because I realized that just as the experience from the stage before, where I knew it wasn't just for me, that if it happened to me, it could happen to everyone. In the same way, the love is that love, that individual, precious love that we all dream of without even not always having a clear image of what it is. That love that we dream of is always there for everyone. It's never ending, it's boundless, it's timeless. It's there all the time. There is no moment when you're not loved completely. So there I was, about 15 minutes away from earlier on when I was about to commit suicide. There I was. My mind was very clear, sharp, and I knew I'm loved, just like everyone else. Then the experience kept on going. That was not the end. This is the heart chakra. This is what I call the fourth dimension. After that, when I was contemplating the incredible work that Jesus Christ or Buddha did, their whole lives they were telling people about the love. I finally got it. That's why. When I was contemplating that, I started to hear music. And I thought, who in the world would be playing music at about 2:45 p.m. in the empty house? And it was beautiful. It was incredible symphony with such a range of voices. I couldn't understand where it was coming from until I realized that, it's actually happening around me, but it's not in the house outside, it's around me. It was loud. And the colors were blue, deep blue. As that incredible music with angelic voices, way beyond our human ranges, and very low sounds like we know from Buddhist chants. That's all I heard. It was mesmerizing. It was just, I was in a trance. I was already so elated and so happy just because of what had happened in the previous stages. And I was listening to this incredible music. And then after a while, I could see there were figures that came to me. Some of them I knew, some of them I knew just a little bit. I didn't know their names, and some were completely unknown to me, but it was a vision where these figures were coming up. They were kind of scrolling down. They had long robes, and they were acknowledging me by looking at me and saying hello. I didn't know what that was. I learned later what it was. But as that was happening, I realized that I was taken into some kind of a group that acknowledged my process and where I was at that time. And that was good, because I felt that I was acknowledged by someone, and these figures seemed like they were very knowledgeable about what was going on. There was a connection that was made. That was not the end either. The next stage started up soon after those ascended masters, as I learned later, went away. The vision came up. The vision was of something I'd never seen before, and I couldn't understand what it was. But I started thinking. My mind, as I mentioned, was very clear. I never took drugs or didn't smoke cigarettes or didn't drink alcohol. I wasn't in a state of any. I wasn't transported anywhere. I knew very well where I was and what was going on. And the new vision, the vision that came, showed me this endless space with bright laser-like green lines disappearing into infinity. Those lines were crossing, and where they were crossing, there were little lights, little pink and yellow lights pulsating. I was wondering, it was all on the background of blackish but very deep purple blue space. And after a while I realized, my mind was asking questions. What is it? I realized, well, this is the matrix of creation. Well, okay, matrix of creation. I looked at it and I saw those lights, and I realized that everywhere where those lines were crossing, that was an individual life being designed, being created. And there was just infinite number of those little lights disappearing into horizon. And I thought, well, is my life there too? So somehow, very quickly, I was able to hover over that whole space, endless space, and I ended up finding my own life too. There it was, little shiny dot like everyone else's. And I looked at that, I was moved to see it, and then the sense of that discovery was a little bit disappointing, because I thought, well, so we're all farmed on that grid, and that's it. But that didn't last long, because in this area there were a lot of different levels where my consciousness was moving. kept on moving up, and I kept on asking questions. And as I realized that, like everyone else, I'm designed already in this different dimension, and my life is all set. I also something completely new came up, and this is something that maybe some of you already heard, because it is known. There is a saying that God says that, but what I realized is that this is the time when the soul gets self-realized. And what happened was that I felt this incredible power within that was growing, and that power wasn't overwhelming power. It was just a sense of identity that I could not describe in any way. I did not know it at all. I just started feeling it growing and growing and growing, and finally it was there within me, and it said, I am. That was all. That was the statement. At that moment I realized that soul exists eternally on the background of our lives and is not affected by time like our lives in this reality. And that soul creates our individual existence. So the soul is our master. In that way, we kind of self-created. But I had some more questions, because I understood that time is also, at that time, a lot of things happens in this realm, and I was able to understand that time is also designed, a made-up factor, just like our lives are. It is not easy to comprehend, especially because we don't have that much time, but I do teach about that in a much more extensive way. So if that's something it's hard to understand, don't worry about it, because we have time outside of here to explain, or maybe I'll have more sessions that will explain it better. But for now, all I wanted to say is that it became clear that time is a made-up factor that's only made up for us so we can position ourselves and go through our lives and live our destiny. When that was clear, and I knew that my eternal soul lives through eons of time and goes through its trials and tribulations, so to speak, it comes to the point of self-realization and knowing itself. It still was not clear to me what's going on, because my question was, where does the soul get all the energy to create itself and to create the person that I am? And as I asked that question, this is what happened. A apparently the question was correct. and I only could see light. There was no more thoughts. I knew what was going on, but I could not ask any more questions. There was answer. The answer came up. As soon as I asked the question, the answer came up. And the answer was inspiration. This is also something that's really hard to explain within a very short time. But I knew very well where it was coming from. And as soon as that answer was given, I was united with that light. And I stayed there, just being that what creates everything. It's just consciousness. There was time when it finally became clear that I should get up and go upstairs to the studio. But it took a while before it happened. I stayed there in that state of being that light that is pure consciousness. It's purely connected with everything. And yes, it is a state of bliss and a state of full awareness that we are a part of one intelligence that's completely aware of everything that's going on at every moment and creates it spontaneously and new all the time. That everything that's going on is being created at every moment anew. This is what gives us this incredible potential of change. Because it's always new, every moment is new. When I went upstairs to my studio, I had no words like I have now. It took over 20 years for me to get the words about it, to put it in words, to write the book, and to be able to explain what happened. I had no words then, and I couldn't talk to anybody about it, but the sense that I had from it was that I was in a complete awe of that power, that incredible power that I was never aware of before. We think that we are creating our lives ourselves. Our lives are created. All we need to do is realize that we are one with that which creates our lives. The feeling of complete surrender to that incredible power was very powerful, and I had no words, as I said, and I feel now that I have no words either. And then for the next 10 days I didn't talk to anybody, and then I started walking. I went out of my studio and I walked, and I went all the way to West Hollywood, and entered a bookstore that I would go to in the past for art books, but it was actually a store with books, with spiritual books. And I didn't know any of that. I didn't know that room, but I went into that room and I pulled one book out of the shelf. I didn't even know that I was going there, but I did. My hand just reached for that book. I opened the book and there was face, a picture, a photograph of a face. And I could tell that the person on that photograph had the same experience that I did. His eyes were shining with that same love that I received and that I still felt so strongly. I didn't know who that person was, but it was Ramana Maharshi. If you have heard of that spiritual teacher, he passed away in 1950. I did later read the book that was that very book. I got it because of that photograph. I didn't want to read anything on top of my experience. I wanted to analyze it, to contemplate it myself before getting any external knowledge about it. So I read some of the dialogues within a year and a half later of Ramana Maharshi answering questions of disciples and people who would come to the ashram in southern India. That was the only connection that I had with a person who actually had the same experience. And it reinforced, confirmed my experience. Then years went by and I realized that what I experienced relates very well to what's known about the subtle body, the system of chakras, kundalini energy, and the transit, the kundalini rising, going up to the seventh chakra and exiting. And actually what was going on was once it exits, it keeps on circulating around. So all these chakras are being cleansed from whatever is there that's preventing the flow. What I understood about chakras from my experience is that although they're called energy centers or vortexes of energy, for a better connection with what they are, from our viewpoint of that individual consciousness that each of us is, the chakras are dimensions of perception. And that's all that we are. The physical dimension here, that's what is the physical reality. It's not just our body, but it's everything. It's everything, it's consciousness. In that way, it very well relates to what Ernest Holmes taught and to this beautiful Center for Spiritual Living that he established, because that was his understanding too, and also understanding of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who also considered nature and totally of life being the power of its own, and human being a complete part of it. So the physical reality is also conscious. All of it, a speck of dust, has that consciousness. There is nothing does not contain that consciousness. The second chakra, the second dimension, is our emotion. Emotions come up. We cannot stop them from coming up. They will always come up. And they are reactions to what's happening in the material world, and also to what's happening in the mental world. So this is the mental world. So physical world, emotional world, mental world, dimensions. If this is, if you can see that, I'm not sure, I hope you can. If this is the first chakra in material reality that has a nature, let's say, of that material reality that we are as bodies does not have any other consciousness besides just being. But when we add emotions to it, it will be already a reality that we have an emotional reaction to. So, this is the pink nature of the emotional reality that we experience. As you know, it could be very different for everyone. It has a huge range of great and wonderful and terrible and in the middle. And that emotional reality perceives the physical reality. So it has that nature too. It perceives that nature. And so it goes, when we go to the mind, this is not yellow, but it's orange, that's okay, it will work. The mind is all that we know, that we live by our minds. We understand with our minds, and those three dimensions is what creates the ego, not bad ego, but just ego, which is the dominance of the first three dimensions. So, as the mind understands the emotional, or at least interprets it, because mind likes to interpret everything and classify it and judge it. And here it also, of course, perceives the physical. So it perceives the physical dimension, it perceives the emotional dimension, and it perceives its own dimension in thoughts. So we know what we're thinking, right? So this is what that is. But then when we go up into the fourth dimension, oh, can you hear us still? There. Okay. So the heart, the dimension that I was describing as the one that I entered and fell in love, that dimension perceives all of the lower ones. And so it goes with all of these chakras. They have a certain hierarchy. And the fourth chakra can see everything that happens with you individually. Your emotions, your problems, your mind, your physical being. It knows all that. But our mental perception does not perceive that dimension of heart. And our physical perception does not perceive it, and our emotional also not. We just have to feel it in another way. So all of these upper chakras we receive glimpses of when they open up, and they can open up under different circumstances. Maybe we hear music and suddenly we're moved by that music, and it's the 5th chakra that opens up. Suddenly we have access to that 5th dimension. Or maybe someone is psychic and gets information from somewhere, from other beings. That's the 5th chakra opened. So each of us has various predispositions. Some of us are very intuitive and see visions and know how things are, even though we don't think about it. It comes from another dimension. That's the 6th chakra of vision and intuition. So let's finish this drawing, and well, maybe I don't need to finish, and maybe you understand where it leads to. But all these lower chakras, lower dimensions, are unable to perceive the upper ones, but the upper ones are in position of perceiving the lower ones if that current is open. What happens in our present reality, living on this planet as human race, our consciousness is dominated by the first 3 perceptions. So, because we are so attached to the material reality, we think that that's the greatest thing there ever was, right? And we believe in that because of our emotions are telling us, oh, we're cold, we have to get warm clothes, or we're hungry, we have to get some food, or have to make money. And the mind is confirming that. And that's where most of us live, in that world of rushing after the material goods, going after setting ourselves up in life for good, for that security and all. And these upper chakras are only coming as glimpses. So we have this incredible situation here. We have this temple, the home of love, that you come to worship and develop that 4th chakra, make it grow, because the lower chakras need to be trained and the upper ones need to be cultivated. The heart, I have here words that describe concepts of that dimension of heart. When we enter this dimension, and I know that if you come here and you listen to the music, you listen to the service, all that happens is that chakra opens up. The love is here and we feel it. So I have plenty of words, and I have a lot of these sheets if you wanted to get some and contemplate them. Love, peace, truth, service, positivity, respect, harmony, healing, compassion, home, tolerance, trust, kindness, grace, empathy, generosity, support, friendship, gratitude, blessing, blessed, soulful, humility, graciousness, hope, forgiveness, devotion, equality, unity, help, happiness, gentleness, safety, giving, loving, sharing, boundless, ever-present, benevolence, dependability, loyalty, fairness, justice, faith, certainty, assurance, joy, fulfillment, innocence, homecoming, surrender, elation, ecstasy, comfort, reward, goodwill, kindness, patience, fullness, release, bliss, fortune, equanimity, flawlessness, inner peace, worship, praise, tenderness, delight, relationship, affinity, preciousness, reverence, earnestness, charity, accord, endearment, honor, faithfulness, admiration, philanthropy, benefit, rejoice, wonder, wonderfulness, unselfish, altruist, sweetness, beauty, passion, temple, heart, sacrifice, sensitivity, sanctuary, cherish, relief, endless, timeless, eternal, honesty, truthfulness, sincerity, and openness. These are just some words, and I'm sure you may come up with more, but that's the world where we feel good. And we can always feel that way because that dimension is always there. All of these dimensions are always there. Only we tend to be drawn to the lower ones because we're not taught yet to train the lower ones and cultivate the upper ones. I mean, we are to a degree, and it's getting better and better. And prayer is one of the ways to cultivate those upper chakras, not just the fourth one, but all of them. Music, singing, playing instruments is cultivating the fifth chakra. Visual arts, training our intuition and vision is cultivating the upper chakra, the sixth chakra. And the seventh one is this other mind. This is the mind that doesn't work like the third dimension mind that works always in order to get a result. We're using this mind, the third dimension, in order to help ourselves with survival, to accomplish goals, and it's always goal-oriented, and it's fine. There is nothing wrong with that mind, and it should be working perfectly. It's a great, better than a computer. It's great. No problem with using it, but that's not all. That's not the higher mind. This mind, the seventh chakra, this is what we hear, the beautiful words of great spiritual teachers that resonate with us on a different level than just what we're going to have for dinner, right? Not the mundane reality, but the deep spiritual truths. They come from contemplation and philosophical thought. And it's not something that we really thought that much. We thought how to make money, mostly. I wasn't taught that, but that's how I grew up. But our reality is always around those basic things that we have to do. But it's very, very important to cultivate the upper chakras, because when they are developed and open, it's not a problem to trigger kundalini to go up. And kundalini is our individual unit of consciousness. And the thing is that it wants to go up. Our consciousness wants to develop, our consciousness wants to go up and unite with the source. Because of obstacles in the second and the third dimension, most of the time that individual unit of consciousness is trapped in between the first and second chakra. It's resting at the bottom of the spine in a latent state. It wakes up every now and then a little bit, but it cannot break through. The fact that it happened to me at some point and I didn't know anything about it, it was because I intuitively did some things. And many of us do things intuitively. And we subconsciously strive towards that experience, because that experience is something that we should evolve towards to, in order to not be so possessed by those first three dimensions. Because that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of unknown that we don't really need to worry about. Because actually we can be peaceful and happy because it's already done. The life is already done. All we need to do is realize that and be happy with it. And there is a reason to be happy, because the power that we are created by is the power of love. It's good. This is something that was a great breakthrough for me, that I realized that there are different religions, and in many of these religions, and some of them specifically, God is this power that's going to scare you. You have to be afraid, and if you don't do like those scriptures say, you're going to be punished, and it's scary, right? Well, it's really not like that. That was a big one for me, because I didn't know what it was, right? I didn't know what that power was. Well, that power is a power of love, and the power of pure, incredible brightness, light. And we have full potential to live on this planet happily. And the ones who are, like you are here today, I know you're already well evolved and able to comprehend the fact that love is a great power. There is a need to show that to the world. And each of us can do it individually by training the lower chakras. Training them is already happening in the form of physical exercise and yoga and healing body. Emotionally, we're just beginning to learn about emotions. That actually our individual unit of consciousness doesn't really need to be overwhelmed by emotions. That kundalini has everything. It has everything. It doesn't need, you don't need to believe in the emotion that's killing you. You can step out of it and it will dissipate on its own, while you can live your life accordingly to what's best for you at that moment. And the same with the mind. It's a little bit more complex because we have so many thoughts, and these thoughts have created our personality, and it just happened to me. I was watching it happen, and it doesn't mean that if you know, the thing with the ego is that we all have ego because we have certain personality, and it's visible. Just my personality is visible to you, and yours is visible to me. But it's not the point. The point is that we are able to exist on all these levels. And we are able to clear out that channel, so we're constantly renewing our energy without having the lingering stuff that we worried about, and without having to believe in what our mind is telling us. I mean, I was extremely lucky that you know, my mind was telling me, go kill yourself, and then I saw something and something happened, but my mind didn't give up. Mind is very difficult to conquer, right? But we are not our minds. We are that individual unit of consciousness that at this point is survival. And then it becomes sexual here, right around the first and second chakra. And then it changes into more and more creative. So our individual consciousness is survival, sexual, and creative. These are the attributes that we can perceive, but we only can perceive them because of that whole subtle body system. The subtle body system is visible from the intuitive chakra. It's not visible to us on a daily basis when we are focusing our energy on our daily life. Some people who have the sixth chakra open can perceive the subtle body. They don't know how, they may not know how it happens, but they can perceive it. And some of us can have moments of actually feeling colors and understanding messages. So we all have access to the upper chakras, but the matter is of cultivating them, opening them, having them open. And once these are trained and these are opened up, kundalini will go up by itself, because that's what it wants to do, because we all want to be closer to God. This is more or less what I wanted to talk about today. I am teaching that. I do individual sessions, and I also have a program that's called Step Up to Your Higher Self, where it's from the beginning to the end, all information about this, what I was talking about, but also in individual way. I help with the practices like self-inquiry and what I call know thyself. Before we can step out of our emotional state, we have to know ourselves, know our emotions, and know our thoughts. And not everyone is that aware of who who he or she is. So there is a little bit of that I help with, and I also help that with my ability to read astrological charts. I do it, I've done it for years, and if someone wants to prepare themselves for the advanced practice of self-inquiry, we need to do the know thyself practice, which involves just knowing about your predispositions, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and what is the best path, because we are all individuals, and at this level, everyone is very, very different. Here, it's more and more alike, although the visions could be very different. It did happen that a friend of mine, friend from Reno, had the same vision that I had of matrix of creation. And it looked to him the same as it looked to me. So those visions can repeat themselves. And in the same way as people who can channel beings, and those beings could be the same beings, like Virgin Mary or archangels or different beings from different galaxies. I know that that's happening, and people are channeling them, and they know that that's the truth. Of course, if just one chakra is open, it sometimes makes it difficult to connect with all the other ones. That's why it's so important that that individual unit of consciousness has a free way up and down, and we can unite all those perceptions into one multidimensional being that's conscious of the dimensions. So yes, so I do teach that Step Up to Your Higher Self program, and the self-inquiry is something that comes as a little bit more advanced practice after the emotional and mental practices. Those are very similar to meditation, but I also encourage contemplation, which at the same time develops the 7th chakra. We have 5 minutes, and if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer. And now I can see. No one has any questions for me. Was it clear what I was saying? Was it understandable? Yes? Yes, absolutely. Okay, then maybe I should ask some questions and you can answer. To what degree was it completely new, and to what degree it was something that you could already relate with? Can someone tell me something that you already know about?
Monique?
Yes.
You said something that caught my attention. I didn't really expect it, but when you were talking about the higher chakras and how...
Whoa, come down.
Yes?
Come down.
And how they can be affected by music or art and so forth. And I'm not a particularly spiritual person, but when I go to art galleries, I have spiritual experiences, if you will.
Yeah.
Both on the intellectual level, I just really enjoy it, the interpretive part of it, but I also have an emotional response almost all the time, and sometimes catches me by surprise when I really start to either communicate with a piece of art, or feel that communication with the creator of that art and so forth, and I start to have an emotional dialogue with it.
Yeah.
Might that be somewhere in this?
Yeah, that shows your predisposition of the 6th chakra being more developed, and that way you can get that information coded in a visual way, because the sixth dimension explains the sacred symbols. It explains in a visual way, explains certain deeper truths that normally are hard to explain through these dimensions. Even though you're experiencing it emotionally, it first is grasping your attention of your sixth chakra, and then it affects you emotionally. Because in otherwise, the painting is there, and some people can react to it, and some people will not react to it at all. It has to be you who feels something, and that something, although we haven't been taught that yet, this is my understanding after my experience, that we are all able to reach those upper chakras, and some of us are more predisposed to have certain ones more open, just like some people react stronger to music than others. So
that's what I was going to say. It's a similar sort of reaction to music. I get the same feelings experiencing art.
right,
Or,
yeah.
or
So
nature,
it's a visual.
or nature or other things. It's not just music, but
Yeah, it's the visual vision and intuition is what sixth chakra is all about, and it also is about all the psychic sciences like astrology, divination, tarot cards, I Ching, you name it, numerology, and many more. That's conceived in the sixth chakra. And the fifth one is where Akashic records are. Everything that's ever happened, and everything that's happening, and everything that will happen is recorded in the dimension of the fifth chakra. So, do whatever you want, it's recorded.
Yeah.
Monique, could you tell me a little bit more about your course?
About
your course, your online course?
Oh, sure, yes. The online course is in the making. I was going to complete it, and then I had some health issue, and I didn't complete it. I had several events happening, but the online course is in the making, and I don't have the time exactly when it's going to be completed. But on my website there should be more information about it. I suggest, if you are interested, if you take the survey that's there, that survey will help me to create that online course with more attention to what your needs are. I'm still working on it. I do teach that same program, but I'm still trying to fine-tune it. So that's where it's at. It could be probably about 2 months, and it's going to be ready. Yeah.
So you're saying you teach individually at this point?
I do teach individually, and I do teach in groups as well. Yeah.
So that will be posted on your website?
That information is on my website too, and the best is to contact me in person, because sometimes I have a group and sometimes I don't have a group. So, if you can hook up with a group, it's better. If you like that, it depends on your preferences too. Yes, and I do give a free half-an-hour sessions for everyone who has any questions. And yes.
Monique, where can we get your book and how much is it?
Oh, Chris. Here is my book. It's right there. It's right there. It's $14.99. Yes. I don't know if I should charge tax or not, but if you buy it in the store, you'd pay $17.23. I have no idea, but here are the books.
Very good.
Okay. Yes.
So would you say most people are blocked between third and fourth chakra? Or what is it that is a major block?
Yeah, our major issues are in the second and third. It's just because so much is going on, right? Emotions come up all the time, and we create thoughts about those emotions, and we have to figure things out when we already have history of figuring things out, and that history is just piling up. So it's very important, the meditation, contemplation, and all kinds of yoga, and of course the control of emotions, but not really denying them and not holding them. So you don't know what they are, you have to know what they are, and I do teach that specific technique that helped me to find myself in that state of emptiness, which is, accordingly to all the greatest spiritual teachers, that's one of the first steps towards spiritual enlightenment, is when you are able to exist and know that you exist without emotion being there, whether good or bad. It's the same with, being all excited about things going on or being all upset. Neither of these two states will allow for the kundalini to go up. You have to be neutral. So getting to that state, there is a little bit of practice to get there. And the third one, of course, the mind is very stubborn. It keeps on doubting all the time. We done?
Yeah.
We done.
We're good.
Thank you very much.
Reminding you that there are books over here. She also has a guest book, and I think she will autograph books if you buy them. And we also thank you so much for coming and supporting this event. And wasn't she wonderful? So clear, so compelling, lovely. And there's a love offering as you exit. Thank you all so much for coming.
And sign up that guest book so I can send you updates. I don't bother you much with emails at all. Just kind of keep in touch so you know what's going on. And thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa. Reverend Dr. Lisa. Thank you, Linda Galloway. You allowed me to do this, and I'm so happy.
Thank you.